All right, looks like we got that done. Ron, are you there? Ken, are you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, how
Yeah.
are ya? Look like
Hey,
we're
I'm doing
getting
all
her
right.
going.
How's everybody today?
We're getting her going.
The Thursday before Memorial Weekend, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's really funny is we can't hear Ken Quinn, and he doesn't know that, so that's kind of funny. And
Thanks for that.
so he keeps talking. I can see his mouth moving, but we're not hearing him. So I don't
Well,
think he realizes that.
isn't
He
it? Isn't that
really
how
needs.
it works?
He's messing with us.
There it goes. Is he? Were you messing with us?
I usually talk, nobody listens anyway, so that's a typical day.
You know what's really interesting? Got a really you're very much delayed even on the program that we're using. So you start talking and then the audio comes through later. It's funny.
So right now there's like a delay.
No, there's not now. Did you do that on purpose?
See, he's messing with us. He does that all the time. He moves
You're
his lips and
messing
doesn't
with
say
us.
anything.
It's like one of those old time movies where you go,
Yeah.
and then you finally hear it, right?
Louder.
Right. Catch up with the audio. So what do we have in store for today, Ken?
Well, why don't we say hi to the folks that have been waiting, and then we'll kind of jump into some fun stuff. Why don't you go around the horn?
Labor Day weekend. Thank you so much, Linda. Labor Day weekend. So I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, so I'm Quinn. We'll go around the horn. I just want to thank everyone. We are the U.S. Term Limits Regional Directors. This is our Thursday live broadcast, and we want to thank you for joining us today. And Ken, introduce yourself, buddy.
I'm Ken Clark. I am the regional director for the Southern region, everywhere from West Virginia, down through Texas, and everything in between. So 16 states in all, and it's a lot of fun, very busy job.
Yeah, and I'm Ron Hooper. I oversee the Western 16 or so states. I think 17. I think they keep flipping one my way every once in a while.
I thought we were 20 now. Aren't you at 20?
See, I tell you, every time I talk, it goes up. And happy to be here today.
So for those of you that are kind of new to us, I'm going to we're going to do this probably about 30 minutes today, but briefly what we're working on, as you can probably tell, is a term limits. We want to get term limits on members of Congress, and there's only really one way of doing that. It takes an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And we are working on a very unique method. It's never been done before in U.S. history. We are trying to get the states to propose an amendment. All of the amendments that have been proposed have come from Congress over the years. And so we are working on getting the 2/3 of the state legislatures to pass our Article 5. The Article 5 is the provision, the article in the Constitution that allows for these amendments to be proposed. So we need 34 states to do that. And once we reach that critical number, then Congress has to call what's called a convention for proposing amendments. And this is going to be just one amendment for term limits. And after the states meet, they draft, they debate, they pass the amendment. It's one state, one vote. It only will take a majority of the states to do it. So if all 50 states send delegates, we only need 26 states to pass it. Then it's out to the states for ratification. And it requires how many states to ratify, boys?
38, my brother.
38. So it's a
high bar.
It's a very high bar. You know what? I don't know if we covered this a few weeks ago, but this is the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which is women's suffrage, right to vote. And so if you ever watched or done some research on that, that was a huge effort. That took, I think, close to 75 years or so, if you go back to the very beginning. And
it was unpopular all along the way. They talk about women's suffrage. That was the right name for it.
Yeah, it's a weird term, suffrage. But that was a long, hard-fought battle, and it was done by the grassroots. And so this is very similar to that. We need people around the country, the grassroots, putting pressure on their state legislators. Mm-hmm. The 19th Amendment was getting it done through Congress, so we're trying to do it. Personally, I think it's easier to deal with your state legislators than it is your members of Congress. And so, unfortunately, we've got to get a lot of states involved with this, but we're taking a very unique approach, and we need your help.
Well, what's interesting about it is it's easier to get in touch with your state representatives than it is your Congress critters. And, one thing that I wanted to circle back on, Quinn, is you had talked about the amendment process. This is a single subject amendment proposal that we're talking about. Really, the only thing that they're going to be discussing at the convention are the terms of the term limits themselves. Is it going to be 8 years, 12 years, 16 years, 14 years? What's it going to be?
Yep.
That's pretty much the only thing up for discussion, whether or not the current Congress will be grandfathered, those kinds of things. Will they be able to run for office, get elected, then sit out a term and then run again? Those are the details that'll be hammered out, but it will only be one subject. And that is
it's the only subject that has that kind of participation and support out there, and it really is the only thing that you could actually get 34 states to agree on. Some of the other initiatives have some negative aspects that really stop other states from supporting. So this is the one that we can really get to the finish line.
So what I want to do, I want to have a little fun. Clark, I think you're going to join me here. So let me.
Yep, this ought to be cool.
Yeah, this is a day in life at working for U.S. term limits, and even our volunteers are going to appreciate some of these arguments. And so, I came across a meme generator online, and I forget the name of the program that these gentlemen had on TV. It might still be on. I believe they make motorcycles.
Orange County Choppers.
Is that what it's called? Okay,
Orange County Choppers, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so everyone can see. So I when I came across this meme generator, I just went nuts and put together some arguments that we hear all the time at U.S. term limits. And so let me so Clark, I'll be the first guy. What are these guys' names, Ron? Do you know?
No, I can't remember. Father and son, though. They argue all the time. This is a perfect name.
Okay.
So you'd be the father then. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be the father. I get the beard, and then Clark, you be the guy, and we'll go through some of these. They're kind of funny, but they're pretty realistic in regards to why what we hear from legislators and candidates, why they oppose term limits. Okay, so here we go. Elections are term limits.
Elections are rigged to protect career politicians.
Let the voters choose.
The voters choose term limits.
I don't care what the voters want. That's so true. They talk about let the voters decide. Well, the voters have decided they want term limits, people.
What's funny is everybody always says the same thing when we do these broadcasts. They always say, put it on the ballot. Let us vote for it. We can't.
Oh, I think that one's one of these. Here we go. I should be allowed to vote for whoever I want.
Wake up, man. The parties decide who you will vote for.
But term limits prevent choice.
Fair and competitive elections provide more choice for the voters.
It's not about being fair or choosing.
I can tell you guys have never smoked. You don't have the voice for Orange County Choppers.
No, we don't. It's probably much deeper. All right, here we go.
Enough.
Oh, Frank, Clark, here it is. Let the people vote for congressional term limits.
Half the states did, but the U.S. Supreme Court overturned those laws and ruled it to be an amendment and ruled it had to be an amendment.
Well, then let Congress propose it then.
Congress is not going to propose term limits on themselves.
Then I guess they think it's a bad idea. Here's another one. We'll lose institutional knowledge with term limits.
I'd rather have real life experience.
We can't afford to lose that.
We can't afford to keep it.
Stop trying to fix everything. Last one here. Term limits only make the lobbyists more powerful.
If that were true, we would have had them a decade ago.
The lobbyists will write all the laws instead.
They already do because they own the incumbents.
Can't you just be happy with the way things are? So anyway, that's a little fun and
that's pretty good.
Good job, guys. Good job.
We laugh at that, but some of these are the arguments they make, and they don't see how hypocritical they sound. You know, they talk about, well, the voters should decide. And it's like,
Well,
listen, they have.
What's funny is that we laugh at that, but there isn't a single person here that hasn't heard at least one, if not all, of those arguments that we just went through. All of us have heard them over and over again from people that you would think would know better, but we still hear them.
I had a fun afternoon doing that, and I've made some more. We'll have to get those out. So anyway, that was fun. So what I want to,
guys, well done.
we should have practiced that first. Oh well,
Yeah, maybe. All right.
not too bad. Not too bad for the first cut. So let me pull it back up. And I thought in the historical part of this segment that we usually do, I want to share a little history. What's that, Clark?
I didn't say anything.
I thought I'd share some wisdom from the framers and some past presidents in regards to term limits. And this is some great quotes.
Wait a minute. Before you start, so our people are helping us. It's Paul Jr. and Paul Sr. So thanks.
Paul Jr. and Paul Sr. Cool.
Yeah, designs.
Oh,
Thanks,
names
Linda.
you guys.
Yeah, she's keeping me straight, Linda, today. So thanks for
All
your
right,
help.
Thanks. Appreciate. I have seen that show before, so
That's funny.
it's been a while. So what I thought I want to share is going back to our founding, and some of these quotes. Many of the framers and even the state constitutions had what they call rotation of office, which is term limits. And there's a great quote by Benjamin Franklin, and really I think this really explains why we need to have term limits, even though he's not referring to that specifically. He says this: "Sir, there are two passions which have a powerful influence on the affairs of men. They are ambition and avarice, the love of power and the love of money. Separately, each of these has great force in prompting men to action, but when united in view of the same object, they have in many minds the most violent effects. Place before the eyes of such men a post of honor that shall be at the same time a place of profit, and they will move heaven and earth to obtain it." Isn't that a great description of what Congress is?
Amazing. And how long ago was this written?
I don't know. This is probably 1780s, 1790s. But boy,
Thank God for our founders.
Franklin knew human nature. He knew it very well. And this is the reason why we need to limit power in Washington, D.C. I want to just share a little bit of history here. So there's the Pennsylvania. I believe he wrote the Pennsylvania Declaration of Rights. So this was in 1776. And Clark is back. There you are, buddy. So let me just read that first section. It says, quote, "that those who are employed in the legislative and executive business of the state may be restrained from oppression. The people have a right, at such periods as they may think proper, to reduce their public officers to a private station." And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We want to send people back home after a few terms in Washington so they have to live under the laws they've passed. Doesn't that make sense, everybody?
It makes perfect sense. That's exactly what they should be doing.
Well, everybody
we're supposed to have
agrees.
a citizen legislature. Now it's professional bureaucracy and lobbyists, and the quickest way to become rich is to go to Congress.
And so here's a Article 5, not the Article 5 we're working on. This is from our first Constitution, the Articles of Confederation. We had term limits in our first Constitution. It says no state shall be represented in Congress by less than 2 nor more than 7 members, and no person shall be capable of being a delegate for more than 3 years in any term of 6 years. Talk about a short-term little what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, the motivation was to serve the love of your country, and it wasn't to get rich and corrupt. I mean, it kept them on a short fuse, and progressive organizations need to think about that. That's the whole idea, is to keep them on a short fuse.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we need to do this today. Thomas Jefferson was a strong advocate for a rotation of office. He said to prevent every danger which might arise to American freedom from continuing too long in office, it is earnestly recommended that we set an obligation on the holder of the office to go out at a certain period. We don't want to leave it up to them. A lot of people run for office and claim, well, I'm just going to serve a few terms and be out, but most times they don't. And so we want to force them out after a certain period. So Jefferson was a strong advocate. I wish he was at the Constitutional Convention of 1787. We probably would have got term limits back then.
Yeah, we probably would have. Quinn, just reminder of time. Be cognizant of the clock.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. All right, real quick. George Mason, nothing is so essential to the preservation of a Republican government as a periodical rotation. Nothing so strongly impels a man to regard the interest of his constituents as the certainty of returning to the general mass of the people, from whence he was taken, where he must participate in their burdens. I love that one. That's a great quote by George Mason. Another one by Jefferson, real quick. The second, now he's referring to the Constitution. This comes from a letter he sent to James Madison. And he said, there's two things I don't like about the Constitution. You didn't include a Bill of Rights. And he said, the second feature I dislike and greatly dislike is the abandonment in every instance of the necessity of rotation in office, and most particularly in the case of the president. Experience concurs with reason in concluding that the first magistrate will always be reelected if the Constitution permits it. He is then an officer for life. And that's exactly what we have pretty much in Congress today. They're officers for life, and we just need to get rid of these career politicians. And I'm going to end it right here. I love this quote. This is President Harry Truman. Term limits would cure both senility and seniority, both terrible legislative diseases. That's beautiful.
That I love.
So that's why we're doing it, folks. Wisdom from the framers. And Ron, I'm going to get now into your segment and how everyone out there that's watching this can get involved. So why don't you take it over, buddy?
Yeah, thanks. We wanted to just spend a couple of minutes about the most important role in term limits, and that's our volunteer activists. That's the people that are listening to this show that'll share it with their friends. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And I think a lot of our volunteers are really concerned about amount of time. What can I do to really help term limits? It's amazing. We do get lots of people that want to help us in ways, but they have limited time. This is something you can do for us that is tremendously effective, and it'll really fit into whatever time you have available. Number one, contact your legislator. We have a link. In fact, I think Mr. Quinn or Ken Clark put it on the remarks, but we'll do that again.
Yep.
There's a link on our page that allows you to put in your name and your address, and we'll reach out to your legislators and let them know that you expect them to support and vote for term limits. You can do that every week if you want to. You can do that every month if you want to. You can put yourself on a program. Some of our state directors are going to start to do that. They're going to remind their volunteers once a month to reach out and contact your state legislator. Whenever they hear from you, a constituent, it's like for every one, they think there's 1,000 behind it. And there probably is. And so it's very important. Number two, we get a lot of activity on our Facebook. We get a lot of activity on all of our social media. But the core of it, and really the people that support term limits in those demographics, are people that are around Facebook and to a certain degree Instagram and Twitter, mostly Facebook. And we share these social medias across those platforms. But the most important thing is, number one, you've already joined our U.S. term limits, or you wouldn't be watching this program. So I know you're on Facebook. All you need to do is for 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, go to your state USTL page, and all you have to do is put in facebook.com/ the name of your state, Arizona, West Virginia, whatever that is, and it'll click and just follow what happens. You'll notice that our digital marketing team is very, very effective every day in releasing very tasteful support ads for term limits. When you go in and you like and make a comment and share that, the viral explosion of that is immense. We're amazed sometimes. And so if you took 10 or 15 minutes a day, went to that Facebook page, liked, comment, and shared those pages, and also Ken Clark has put in our comments a list of maybe a dozen different links that I use every time to really to do that.
Yep.
And then the last thing is Messenger. It is so easy. Just if you are looking, when you look at the 2 or 3 or state legislators that you have, all you need to do is go into their Facebook and leave them a message. What is your position on term limits? And put that link in there that you see there, www.termlimits.com/pledge. We get a lot of response from politicians off of Facebook. It seems to be the medium for politicians. And so it's a very effective tool. So 3 things. Number 1, contact your legislator on a regular basis. No, we don't sell that mailing list. When you put in your address, it's only in there for us to be able to know who your legislators are and who represent you, so we can be very laser focused when we reach out to them. Number 2, like, share, and comment on your state Facebook page. That gets translated across several different social media. So it's a very important thing to do. And number 3, look up your legislators, drop them a message from time to time. Remind them that 85% of their constituents support term limits and that they have a 16% better odds of being elected if they publicly pledge to support term limits. And we've got polling to support those labs. Anything else, guys, you want to add?
Ron, excellent job. Great job, man. I appreciate that. Let me just, for those, I added a few more slides to this. I want to show people how to find them now. So if you go to our website, termlimits.com, and under the Take Action tab up top, you go down to the 5th item, which says Get Pledges on Facebook. Click on that, and it's going to take you to this page here. There's a training video that you can watch, but if you scroll down a little bit, there's about 8 steps that helps you find your legislators, and then it takes you to their profile in Ballotpedia, where you, in most cases, will list their campaign Facebook page. So you can go directly to their campaign Facebook page and message them. And so please check that out. It's real easy to do. And great job, Ron. That was very clear, and really appreciate you sharing that with everybody.
You bet.
All right. Any questions, guys? I haven't seen a lot of questions on the chat room, so I want to make sure before we leave in a few minutes that we try to address any questions folks have.
Well, Scott out there really seriously said, are you seriously naive enough to think the politicians are going to vote for this?
I love that one.
No.
Yeah. I like that too. I replied to it and just said, you're so very right. That's why we're working to get the states to propose term limits. We know better than to think Washington, D is going to do it. Those pigs won't regulate themselves. They will never.
It's like sending your kids to prison to learn how to do business.
Yeah, exactly. They will never, ever do anything ever that will limit their own power and ability to get rich. Period. They just won't do it.
Madison wrote something about this. I forget which Federalist paper, but we're using ambition to counter ambition. And so we want to use the ambition that state legislators have to go to Congress to open up the opportunity for that. And so once they realize that the chances that they are increased if they have open seat elections due to term limits, that's going to get them hopefully to move in this direction to vote on this. We've got a bunch of states. The people want this so bad. A lot of state legislators are advocating, their leaders around the country advocating for this. And so I don't like the negativity. Let's be positive. Let's see this as a glass half full. And it just takes a little effort on all of our part to get it done, like Ron shared with all of you. So if you haven't done that yet, don't gripe and complain unless you're doing something. The people that complain the most typically are not doing anything. So that's typically what I find.
Well, change is in the air. Did you guys see that stat where 35% of the races this year were uncontested, only had one party? I mean, it's just amazing when you think about that across the country. We get in such diverse things, but some districts only have one person running for an office.
Yeah, that still amazes me. I mean, there should be 2, 3, 4, 5 candidates in every race every time. And, but the reason, and Ron, you bring up a really good point. The reason is anybody that would have ambitions to do it, and let's say you're doing it for the right reasons, doesn't matter the party, you look at an incumbent and then doing an analysis of what it would take to win against an incumbent. And most reasonable, rational people are going to look at that and go, no way, I'm not doing it. Why would I waste my time?
Well, you look at some of these people in Congress, you say, how did they get elected? You know, it's amazing. How in the world? And that's because our best and brightest refuse to compete with those kinds of odds.
And most, it's absolutely amazing.
Bye, everyone. I think we're going, right?
No.
See the countdown.
I saw a countdown. I didn't do that, but we're back. I'm back. But you're right. You know,
somebody must be telling us something.
Many good people do not run, and let's all be honest here. The parties try to keep out challengers to the incumbents because they want to protect that seat. So,
and the parties care about their own power too, just like, you know, individuals. Just, you know, it's all corrupt. That's why term limits are so terribly necessary.
Yep. Yeah.
And so terribly resistant from the career class of politician.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we wrap up this segment? I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I wish everyone a nice long weekend. Most of us are going to be celebrating or relaxing. I think relaxing.
I've got a bunch of stuff to do around the house, and then I'm going to be relaxing.
I just had a grandchild, so I haven't seen him yet.
Congratulations, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you very much. Hope to see him, if not today, tomorrow morning. So,
hey, look in your press releases too. We have a couple of new state directors, and so we are growing. This is the most popular voter initiative ever, and people are standing up, day-to-day citizens, and stepping up and taking leadership roles with U.S. term limits, and we appreciate them doing that for us. All right, Rachel and Edward.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday.
We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.